Natanta, Sama, Prayena. Normally, I love when he says normally. Normally, the count from the sign to its lord furnishes the dasha period of the sign in years. Okay? Nata anta means ending with the sign. So, from the sign to its lord indicates the years. As you know, it can also be from the house to its karaka. Okay. It can also be from lord back to the sign. Definition. If you count from sign to lord, we call it purusha. Means it is male. It is a male dasha. If we count from the lord back to its sign, it is prakriti, female dasha. So if the dasha is Narayan, who's the devata, it should be male. If it is Sudasha, who is based on Lakshmi, which is based on Lakshmi, it is female. Easy. Now you know when to use what. Male type dasha, female type dasha. Based on that, sign to lord, lord to sign. Done. Easy peasy. Okay. People have been doing Sudasha for quite some time now, right? So almost 7 years. We're very good at keeping secrets in the tradition. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The method of counting used for variable period dasha of the signs is being expounded in the preceding sutra. There are two methods to the count, from the sign to its lord or the opposite direction. Generally, the count is reckoned from sign to its lord. These sutra are only for variable dasha periods. There are some dashas who don't have variable lengths. They're fixed. Remember I said the other day, 9 years for dual signs, 8 years for fixed signs, 7 years for movable signs. Some will follow that. Have you seen Shula Dasha? Every dasha is 9 years each. So that's preceding sutra, where it said normally we count from the sign to its lord. It says normally because we don't do it in dashas. Normally in longevity dashas, the periods are fixed. You can write that down. Normally in longevity dashas, the periods are fixed. And when I say normally in this context, I also imply that most longevity dashas, there are a few Trapalita dashas where the periods are fixed also. Not so many. It's very few. Now, there's a hidden meaning in this sutra. Let's go back. See, it is referring to counting to the sign as its end, from the sign to its lord, sorry. Nata anta, ending with the lord. Sama, regularly. Prayena, in that direction, moving forward. This will furnish the first period of the dasha. Now, the thing is, if you see a sign, there are 12 signs, right? Each sign can maximum have how many years? 12 years, right? So, a maximum period of this dasha, of any dasha, will be 144 years, maximum, at most. Now, the problem is obviously that rarely will you find that all those 12 signs get 12 years each. They'll get less. Some will get 3, some will get 4, some will get 6, some will get 11, some will get 1, some will get 0. That's possible. and therefore you will not cover 144 years. Now there's one school, a more modern school, which says, well, when you're done with 12 signs, that's it, finished, done. It may last till 54 years of age. If the person lives longer, fine. So their argument is, we'll only have 12 dasha. The Orissa school says, no. The soul is going to stay in some way in this world, in some context in this world. Maybe the cycle for which the soul gets replaced has to be for a whole period of 144 years. So therefore, after the first 12 dasha, there will be 12 more dasha, which is a repetition of the previous cycle. Okay? So if you started with Mesha, your 13th dasha will also be Mesha. If your second dasha was Vrishabha, your 14th dasha will be Vrishabha, and so on. It'll repeat. But the years will change. For example, if you had 3rd years in Mesha dasha first time, you will take the balance and it'll be 9 years in Mesha dasha second time.
So it'll still be
The balance from 12. 3 from 12 is 9. So the remaining 9 years will be in the second cycle. That way you will cover 144 years exactly. That way every sign gets its full 12 years. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was the question.
Okay? Does that make sense to you?
But I don't see people over maybe.
No, people don't. Souls do.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. I mean, if you're asking me how God does it, I don't know. Okay? But if you're asking me, how is this used? Well, that 144 years will show the change of cycle for the soul. Okay?
maybe we are dying and waiting somewhere.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Exactly. That's the thought, right? That is how we can understand this context. That's right. Also, when we look at nations, countries, we say they will have a new chart every 144 years based on this. Okay?
Is that because we also view them as living things?
Yes, it's or rather it's souls which are interacting with something dead. A jivatma interacting with a jadatma. That's what's happening. Okay. This is an example. Right? Yeah. This is just counting the periods. So you know already. So I won't pray about this. Now, when we count these periods, I'm making an assumption that every one period that it gets is 1 year of human life. This will also apply to elephants. The human being's life is equivalent in period and length of 2 elephants. But it does not apply to other beings. Okay? So based on this we can make some variation in the calculation. Now the example here is given of the dasha balance. If the first dasha was 5 years, the second will be 7 years. First Scorpio dasha might be 5 years, second Scorpio dasha will be 7 years. That's what's referred to here. To get a total of 12 in total. So we cover the entire 144-year period.
Sometimes changing rapidly, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes you can cover your entire first cycle of 12 dashas in a matter of few years.
Yes, maybe in
30 years, 40 years, done. You know, it doesn't mean you're leaving this world at that time. No, it means your second cycle is coming. Second cycle normally is, it's like with the moon. You know, first is moving towards full moon, from birth to full moon, and then from full moon back to new moon.
Also, is there some prediction difference in first cycle,
Yes.
second cycle?
Slight differences there, because one is increasing. The first 12 years are increasing in strength, so they're rising. The next 12 dashas are decreasing in strength, like they're waning, they're getting weaker. That's what's happening.
The maximum number of cycles is 2.
Only 2. That's maximum.
So if the first cycle is for 30 years,
Then the next will be for the balance. That's
for the balance,
100 and,
this is for
14.
minus it. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
144.
Waning means getting more knowledge, or
It's very good for knowledge. That's the time the rishis wake up.
you get maybe mature in the first cycle by events, and then second cycle.
It's Shukla Paksha. Imagine Shukla Paksha, right? The waxing period when the moon is getting stronger. That is said to be good for things like acquiring wealth, property, career. It's not good for spirituality and truth. It's the Rama period. Rama period. You're rising. Then Krishna Paksha. It is the going back to the darkness. Okay, preparing for death. That's the most spiritual time. It's a very good time. It's the time when the Mahavidyas wake up and start guiding you through the darkness. Of what use is all this light if you still have not found the small secrets of this world, of the soul, secrets of the soul? The waning period is when you will find those secrets, because that's when you're shown the darkness. Only when you're shown the darkness will you look for the light, right? Whereas if there's light everywhere, you don't even think about looking. That's the difference. So you can say the first 12 years, first cycle is like Devas rising. And then the next cycle is like Rishis rising. Deva and Rishi. We have other ways of seeing cycles in the dashas itself. But just can't stick to this. For other animals, the dasha period is accordingly reduced or increased based on their gestation period. How long they stay in the womb. How long they're being carried for in the womb. And therefore their maximum longevity is changed. The Purna Ayus, which forms the basis for computation. Maharishi Parashar teaches the second method for this purpose. He has stated the longevity for various creatures in the Ayuradhyaya, the longevity chapter, on these slokas 24 to 29. The longevity of the Deva and Rishi is limitless. A Rishi can live as long as he wants, a Deva can live as long as he wants. And is beyond human comprehension and experience. It is for this reason the tradition advises against calculating longevity of seers and such great spiritual souls who come to this planet for various tasks and leave at will. Physical death does not constitute end of existence for them, as they have the ability to take on any physical body for their purposes. What does that mean? It means when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi leaves his body, you think he is not alive anymore? That's what it means. He doesn't need a body. That's what this means. Alright? Therefore, calculating longevity for them is not advisable. Okay? We have the example of Adi Shankara, who had left his body to occupy that of a dead person, to experience what it meant to enact in copulation and mating, during a debate with a lady called Misha. There was a debate. You know the story. There was a debate, and he was debating with a man, and then they're discussing samvada. And in those days, debate was very important. It judged how clever you were, how much knowledge you had. And the person who lost the debate had to become your student. So you can imagine how important it was. You have an entire tradition going some 50, 100 years. One guy comes and wins a debate with you, you become his student. And his tradition you must follow. Alright? Very, very important. Adi Shankara traveled all over India and debated with all the religious heads. Why did he have to do that? Because at that time, everybody was confused. Everybody was following their own path. This path, that path, this path, that path, doing their own thing.
Buddhism.
You know? They were doing many different things at the time, not just that. Okay? So Adi Shankara wanted to ensure that people were having the right foundation of knowledge. And you must understand the attitude. It's not I must win. It is, if I am holding the right knowledge, then I will win the debate. If I'm not, I will lose the debate. And I will still gain knowledge. Because I'll get the right knowledge. So the one who wins the debate is holding the right knowledge. And everybody wins. So imagine if Adi Shankara, he's already had 10 debates. 10 traditions are under him. He goes to another debate. If that person wins, those 10 traditions come under that person. Good! It's good for the entire place, right? It's good for everybody. That is the attitude one must have in this context. Now, in this debate, which initially starts with a man, he's discussing. It looks like he's winning the debate. It looks like he's giving arguments for everything. He's conquered all the discussion points. Then something happens. The man's wife comes, and she's also a guru, a gurvi. What does this tell us? Number one, yes, there are lady gurus. So if anybody says they're only male gurus, Adi Shankara's story is a proof against that. Okay. Now, she also had the sacred thread, Gayatri Diksha. Ladies can have Gayatri Diksha. Now, the debate started between them. But then Adi Shankara realized something. This Adi Shankara has been celibate from childhood. He's never been married. He's barely had any look at the opposite sex. And this lady's coming, and she's going to debate relationships with him, because that's part of spirituality also. So he said, okay, wait a minute. You're allowed to pause the debate, to excuse yourself until you want to continue the debate. And he said, for this, I have to pause the debate. I'll return. We have a set amount of days, after which I'll return and we'll continue the debate. It's allowed. Time out. So, he goes into the forest. He tells his students just to wait for him. Don't follow him, just wait. He goes into the forest. He lies down next to a tree. In fact, the story is that there's a cavity in the tree, and he lies down there. He does a mantra, and he leaves his body. And he travels, with his soul and mind still there. He travels, and there is a king who has just died in that area. And he enters the body of the king, who everybody believes has died. So imagine all these people mourning. The king has 3 wives. They're all mourning for their husband, who's this big king. All the priests, everybody's there. Princes, princesses, all there. And the guy who opens his eyes, wakes up and gets up. Continues life as usual. This king. And in this, Adi Shankara, acting as the king, gets to experience what it means to be a father or a husband. And he is able to understand what it means also to interacting in mating. Because this he doesn't know. He doesn't know what it is. So, in this context, he's able to experience that. Why did he have to leave his body? Because the purity of his body was very important. That's how seriously he took it. He had actually renounced this body, so he was not allowed to interact with anybody. So, after a very short period of time, these queens realized that this fellow roaming around is not their husband. Because he has no clue what's going on in the house, in the kingdom. He's talking with a different dialect, a different tone. And they tell the priests, they tell the astrologers draw the chart and say, no, he's been possessed. Our king has been possessed by another soul. The real king is not here. Go out in the jungle. There is a body in this area, underneath a tree, find it and burn the body. The astrologer said that. Okay, they're Raj Jyotishas, king astrologers. Adi Shankara is like, oh boy. He immediately leaves the body of the king, enters the body of his own. Goes back and continues the debate. Rishis don't need bodies. And he won the debate, by the way. That is why we have something called Shankara Acharya in India. There are 4 of them. He established those 4. He established the entire faith around them. He established the entire traditions around them. All traditions actually stem from there in India, from his work. He was not very old at this time. He was like 20s, maybe just before his 20s.
Why he did this?
Why he did what?
For this thing.
Because he had to learn what it meant to be a husband. He's never done that before. And he could not do it in his own body because he had renounced that right. If you renounce it, you're not allowed to interact in it.
So only
You break a promise to God.
So did he learn?
Huh?
Did he learn?
Yes. He won the debate. So he must have learned something.
It's just. Never mind, I think it's much better to ask you some information.
Large birds. There are some big birds, like vultures, owls, and parrots. Not these small green fellows, not the green ones, big Amazon parrots I'm talking about. Crows, okay, it must be some big crows. Like those crows in London, they must be huge. Some of them. Snakes, not pigeons by the way, those real crows. Snakes also, they have 1,000-year longevity, according to this. Yeah, 1,000 years. You know. Respect them, please. You know. The parrots refer. Okay, this is the Amazon deal. Okay, they're the big South American birds that we're talking about. They have a proportional multiplier for the variable dasha, where we take the 1,000 years divide by 120 first. We get 8 years 4 months. Thus, the full count of 12 for a dasha Rashi would be 12 times these 8 years 4 months. Okay. So when we talk of their dashas, they're much longer. Okay? And the full cycle of 12 signs give these creatures 1,200 years. We have to add those 200 extra, by the way. It is necessary. Though we say, let's say human beings live maximum 100 years, so we do some calculations and we get a bit extra. That buffer period is important. The device 120 used in the calculation is the maximum longevity for human beings, which is 120 years. We use this as the base, 120. And we make variations for other creatures. Okay? Did you see how what we did here? 1,000 divided by 120. This we use to figure out the dasha periods. It must be more than the longevity. So it must be more than 1,000. When we get that number, we use it in Narayana Dasha. And that buffer period is the buffer period of the soul. Okay? Like, longevity is supposed to be maximum 120 years for human beings, give or take a few years. 144 is maximum Narayana Dasha. Buffer period.
If we go to another yuga, then we learn another astrology.
No, we just change these periods. That's all. We'll just make them longer. That's all. We also have exceptions for mundane astrology. The longevity of any man-made symbol or object is taken as 144 years. So no wonder we don't know what people were doing in the old days. We had 144 years. Okay. Thereafter, a new solar entry chart is drawn for the moment of creation, and this chart is used for the next 144 years. So countries have cycles of 144.
What do we do then with, like, an example of that is Britain?
Yes.
Oh yeah, they don't have a constitution. They just
do.
have some. Yeah, a formal constitution is not there. They have some laws.
Yes.
That are more than 1,000 years old. So we draw a new one every time 144 years lapse.
Exactly. In fact, they have a time when they established the entire monarchy system. We have the date and the time. And then from there we keep adding cycles of 144 to get to the most recent time or date. And that chart we use. Like the US is in its second cycle now. Britain is like in its fifth or fourth. I don't remember. They've done quite a
solar entry chart. What is solar entry?
This 144 years is solar years.
Okay.
That means from sun 1 degree, let's say 1 degree measure back to 1 degree measure. That's 1 year. So imagine 144 years of that.
According to the dasha dates
Because
entry,
this is not
we are
Tithi
changing the
calculation,
chart.
which we mostly use for annual chart.
Ah,
This is not Tithi calculation, Tithi Prash
Tithi, it's
calculation.
not Tithi, no.
So,
Sun's degree 1 year, back to same degree of the sun next year.
This is technique from Western astrology.
No,
The
there's
sun
one.
technique, yeah, it is.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I
Where do you
didn't
think they
know
got
that-
it from?
Well, I didn't know that it is used in Jyotish. I thought that
No, we use it
combination of solar entry and moon entry in Tithi
Yeah.
is what we usually use for annual charts in
It's
Jyotish.
not,
I thought this is only half of the story, let's say that way.
we have 2 types of annual chart, even in the Vedic Jyotish.
Okay.
You see, the sun chart, the return of the sun, is showing what resources are available in this world. It's a legitimate method of drawing annual charts. It is. It does not depict the soul's voyage because it's not taking into account the mind, the moon. So this sun moon yoga is the spirit, which is the Atma Karaka.
Okay.
Tithi Pravesh chart takes that into account. We can use both. We are supposed to use both, but they have different relevances. In mundane astrology, it's like this. It's much easier to understand there. New moon in Aries is the king. But Sankranti, when the sun moves into each sign, the beginning of each sign, those are the various ministers. The king rules the country, but the ministers do his bidding. Similarly, you are the king of your life because you have a tithi. And you have various people helping you based on when the sun enters each sign at the same degree as when you are born. That is what it is. So the sun progression, if you can call it that, the sun return, solar return, is the resources available in this world. And you are personally, you are the spirit which is residing in the tithi. Nice philosophy, isn't it? We use both. Obviously, in our tradition, we prefer tithi because everybody's interested in themselves. A few businessmen will be interested in solar entry charts
This is nice.
because that shows their resources in this world.
You mean the Varshapal chart?
Yes.
What about the cycle? How can we remake the country chart?
How we can figure it out. A country chart, yes.
Country chart.
Simple. 1 year is considered, let's say a country starts its life with 5 degrees Mesha. Sun in 5 degrees Mesha. Keep that in mind. Sun in 5 degrees Mesha. After the sun has come back to that 144 times,
Yes.
that exact degree, exact minute, exact second, we draw a new chart.
Okay. That's
And the
all.
chart, all the aristal planets may not be the same. They're not likely to be the same. Different lagna, different
Yes,
this,
a
different
different
that.
luck now.
Everything will be different.
Simple. Okay.
That also explains the history of a country like America, where they were very withdrawn and didn't want to join into anything, and then 144 years later.
Yes. 1776 independence, plus 144, we'll get what? 1920?
1920, yes.
After that, everything changed. It works.
But the countries they're not living objects, but they're consisting of living bodies that consist one country. So you can say there is a longevity of 144. What about the objects, let's say buildings, I don't know, anything, pyramids or whatever, how do you,
Same.
what do you do for that?
Same.
But pyramids are obviously much older than 144. And
Who said they have to die after 144 years?
No, but is that seen, the longevity of those things, is that seen in the first cycle that you are making chart for?
Obviously, we will have different longevity calculations for them because their lifespans can be longer. But they will still abide by a cycle of 144 years. After that, the chart changes. But who's to say that there isn't a yoga in that chart for pyramid which is limitless longevity?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But the state of that pyramid will change after every 144 years.
Okay, I see.
That's what's happening.
Same for the countries. They must have longevity far longer than 144, but
Yes.
For extending this cycle from multiple times.
Would a new chart, Navamsha, show like the past history?
It always does. Next. We have some other exceptions also. Is that listed here? Swearing in charts for new governments are normally for a maximum period of 4 years or 5 years, depending on the country. Then they'll have a re-election, and the maximum longevity of the chart is to be taken for that period. That means you can take, let's say, swearing in chart. Maximum tenure is 4 years. You take that length and compress the dasha, and you can see what's happening in every part of those 5 years or 4 years. So we can do it also for things which have a set longevity. We can. But it's also possible that before that 4 or 5 years is over, that swearing in chart breaks. Like BJP when they were in India. We saw that example the other day. Within a year, their whole party fell up. I mean, not the party, but the government fell apart.
Or like in Italy, where they've had 60 governments or 70 governments since the Second World War.
Yes. Even though the tenure may be 4 or 5 years, it's something the chart itself can show if it's ending earlier, right? You have to keep that in mind. But we can, to see what's happening in that fixed period, compress the dasha for that period. And we have the math here. Full lifespan, let's say it's 5 years. Divide by 120, multiplied by the years that we're looking at. So if you say that Scorpio Dasa has 5 years, this will be number 5 over here. The exact period in months and years will be the result.
Because when we judge this mundane astrology, right?
Mm.
We discussed earlier that certain areas of the world are ruled by certain signs.
Yes.
Do we then also take that into account?
Yeah.
Do you understand my question?
We use it for transits.
Am I okay?
Transits we use it for. Although some opine that mathematically it makes more sense to use 144 as the full period of Rashi Dasha instead of 120, which is the maximum longevity of man. As the divisor, we have given the opinion of Parashara and have been advised to use the same. Parashara says 120. That's the point here. Okay? Well, this is an argument. It's worth examining, but Parashara has said use 120. So we do have a source. Some people say that this concept of taking 2 cycles is wrong. They say there's no reference. Nobody said anything. Let me read this. Yavad,
Yavad.
Yavad.
Vivekam,
Vivekam.
Avritir,
Avritir.
Bhanam.
Bhanam.
Every dasha shall have 12 equal antardasha. That shall be zodiacal or anti-zodiacal, depending on the starting sign, but will flow along the zodiac instead of jumping signs. Now, there's hidden meanings in this, because he's talking about antardasha. He's talking about antardasha. He's saying you have a dasha, it shall have 12 equal parts. Where does he get the number 12? Yavad. Can you do katabayadi of that?
Yeah.
It's 1 and 4 fourths and 5. It's Leo.
5. So that's not the one. Okay. Viveka. Katapayadi Viveka.
This one.
Vavaka.
It's 0. This is
Have we actually checked
Pisces.
Obama
So
chart?
12, right?
Not yesterday, but the day before.
Which number did you guess?
We showed us
441 and then
Obama
reverse
chart, right?
144. Yeah.
Okay. 12, right? So based on Viveka, we get
check it.
Yavat. That means that is or that will be 12 and they will follow cyclically. So these 12 antadashas we talked about, the translation is coming from the word viveka, which means 12 here. You got 144, right? This is Jaimini's reference to that we can use the entire cycle of dashas in 2 cycles to be 144 years maximum. So it is there. Alright. Thank you, Jaimini. Okay, this is our reference. Viveka means 144. Also. What does that also mean? When you get a number, you don't always have to divide it by 12. You can also just leave it, see what happens. See what it means for the translation. Okay? So this thing about antadashas, do you see anywhere where it says antadashas? The word antadasha? So this can be for antadashas, it can also be for the mahadashas having 2 cycles of maximum 144 years. So it means both. Jaimini is smart that way. Okay. This sutra settles the whole debate on whether to use 144 or just use 1 cycle, which may be variable, may not be even the half of that 144. What's the time? 6 o'clock. Okay, we'll soon take a break. How far are we also? Oh, we're soon done. I'll end this before the break.
Tamana confia.
Yavat means correlative of like, as great, as large, as much, as many, as often. It is normally a prefix to the quantity or reference to which it correlates. Yavat kartra indicates that according to the number of persons acting or sharing in a sacrifice. So who is sharing here? The dashas are sharing. Or antadashas are sharing parts of the mahadasha. It refers to an equal or proportional sharing. Then we have the katapayade viveka, from which we did our work just recently. Maharishi Jaimini is affirming that the full period of all 12 signs is 144 years, and the second cycle has to be considered in the manner explained under the previous sutra. All right. Antadasha. Further, 144 divided by 12 leaves no remainder and is completely divisible. In such cases where the remainder is 0, take the number instead to indicate 12. Right? Because when you divide by 12, you will never get 12 as the remainder. You always get 0. Thus, Maharishi Jaimini is also saying that the dasha period of a sign has to be divided equally among the 12 signs. This is what we all derived already. The 2 meanings of the sutra. For example, if the dasha of Virgo is 8 years, then each of the 12 signs shall furnish 1 antadasha, which shall be 8 months. How do we get this? 8 years divided by 12 is 96 months. 96 months, 12 signs is equal to 8 months each. Okay? The simple mental math is to take the same figure as that of the Yadasha and use months instead of years. That's the easy part. If a dasha is 1 year, its antadasha will be 1 month each. Very easy, straightforward. Similarly, if a dasha is for 6 years, each antadasha shall be 6 months. It's very straightforward. It's easy. Come on. Okay, anyway. Vritti refers to rolling around and indicates that the antadasha shall be either zodiacal or reverse. It means it's going in some direction, depending on the nature of the sign, furnishing the first antadasha. So whatever starts what is the first antadasha? That decides this going backwards or forwards. If it's odd, you go forward. If it's even, you go backwards. We have 4 chakras, right? We can choose any of those. Okay. In any dasha, if the antadasha are regular, then Taurus antadasha will follow either Aries antadasha or Gemini antadasha. Good. Alright, if it's anti-zodiacal, it'll go from Gemini to Taurus. That's all it means here. Don't put too much value into this. Anyway, Taurus antadasha cannot be after the antadasha of any other sign. That means it's 1 sign at a time. All antadashas don't jump. They cannot just suddenly take every 3 signs, 5 signs, 6 signs. No, it's 1 sign at a time. one sign at a time. Alright? This is an important principle in understanding the movement of the Antardasha of all Rashi Dasha, including the Kala Chakra Dasha. All Rashi Dasha follow this principle. So if you see a person who is doing some odd Antardasha calculation, Jaimini has said no, it's not possible. Only regular, one by one. Only. That also implies that the Mahadasha and Antardasha follow two different completely philosophies.
But Taurus is a even sign. Then he.
Yes, he's referring to if Gemini was having Ketu, for example.
Huh.
That's what he means by it. Assume. But you're right, it should be going after Aries only. Cannot be after Gemini. Is the last slide
No, one more is there.
that I just changed? Where is it?
There's a personal
Ah,
chart.
yeah. Starting sign for Antardasha. You have one more? Oh no, that's not good. Okay. Starting sign for Antardasha. The first Antardasha is furnished by either of the two processes, Dasha Rashi or the seventh from it, whichever is stronger. Or two, the sign occupied by the Lord of Dasha Rashi or the seventh from it, whichever is stronger. For example, if Libra Dasha is running, Libra Mahadasha, and Venus, who is the Lord of Libra, is placed in Cancer, then one, the Antardasha start from Libra or Aries, which is Aries is the seventh house from Libra, depending on whichever is stronger, or two, from Cancer, which is occupied by Venus, the Lord of Libra, or Capricorn, the seventh house from Cancer.
But there is the or.
There is an or, because we have two concepts. We call the first one Rashi Antara. Write it down. Rashi Antara. Rashi Antara. The other one is called Paka Antara. Okay? For Rashi Antara, this is what happens. Let's say Mahadasha is Libra. Okay? Rashi Antara means that Rashi will furnish the Antara Dashas. So find stronger between Libra and Aries. Let's assume Aries is stronger. The first Antardasha will be Aries. The second Antardasha will be Taurus. Third Antardasha will be Gemini. Okay? That's one method called Rashi Antara. This is the no-brain method. Rashi Antara means no brain has been applied. No brain has been used. Intelligence is zero here. So we use that for places where we use zero intelligence, like Shula Dasha, body. Intelligence was not applied, body was there. Okay? Only body. The other concept is called Paka Antara. Have you heard of Paka Lagna? The sign which has the Lord of Lagna is called Paka Lagna. From that word comes Paka Antara. That means from that sign, see where its Lord is. The place where the Lord is, that is where the Dasha will start from, or rather Antardasha.
Like a Pakalakna start.
Yes, exactly, like Paka Lagna starting a Dasha. The Antardashas can start from the sign occupied by the Lord of the Dasha. In different Dashas, we'll take different seventh houses as reference. Like in Narayan Dasha, let's say we're talking about Libra Dasha. And we already concluded before among Libra and Aries, we decided Aries was stronger. Right? We decided.
In Mahadasha. So why do
Libra
we have?
Mahadasha.
So why do we have to think again for Antardasha? If we decided for Mahadasha to start from Libra, we're gonna start for Antardasha.
I'm just saying it's Libra Mahadasha, it's not the first Dasha. Let's say it's the third Dasha. Okay?
For the end. Okay.
Let's say it's the third Mahadasha of Libra. Assume. So among Libra and Aries, we have to decide which is stronger to see the Antardasha. Let's assume Aries is stronger than Libra. Wherever Mars is placed, that sign will be the first Antardasha. So let's assume Mars has gone to Cancer. The first Antardasha will be Cancer and Libra Mahadasha. The second will be, it's an even sign, so we'll go reverse. So second will be Gemini Antardasha, third will be Taurus Antardasha, fourth will be Aries Antardasha, and so on. This example gives a further example of where we can start from first descent from the Lord. We will not study that right now.
Which system do we use in this? Narayana.
In Narayan Dasha, we use both.
Both. But when is when?
But
Are you sure you want me to tell you? Okay.
Yes.
you were speaking about
Normally-
the softwares yesterday? How this software, I don't know, Jagannath or whoever, decided all those things, lordship, which one is stronger, where to start, what to follow?
Well, there are rules.
Exact rules that can.
Yeah, strength rules are there, yes. The exact strength rules. You cannot go around. I'll teach you, don't worry. You'll have no doubt. Okay? Okay. And now, most dashas will choose one of these techniques, either Rashi Antara or Paka Antara. One of them. Narayan Dasha uses both. It uses normally Paka Antara, normally. Okay? But if Saturn is in the Mahadasha sign, it will use Rashi Antara instead. Now that is not given in Jagannath Hora,
Really?
so you'll have to sometimes do that mentally. Okay? Some of you will read Kova, Crux of Vedic Astrology, and you'll see, why did Guruji you make this mistake in the Antardasha calculation?
Yes.
Sometimes he does that, because of Saturn.
Because he's taking from computer?
From the sign. No, he didn't use. No, he didn't make mistakes. He didn't use computer. That's actually is
We
correct.
are making mistakes.
Yeah, the software is making mistakes, but Guruji has actually written the right dasha calculation. And people think it's a mistake because the software is not the same. So when you go back and read Kova, Crux of Vedic Astrology, here's a good idea. Go and find Bill Clinton's chart in the book. Try and see the Mahan Antardasha calculation and you'll see this happening.
Because of the placement of Shani.
Yes. And do you think you have understood the principles? If I say, now we've studied Pakantara and Rashyantara, can you tell me which chakra do we use if Ketu is dominating the direction?
Last one.
What's the last one called?
Four.
Akriti chakra.
Akriti chakra.
If Saturn is there, if Saturn decides direction,
Udaya.
Udaya chakra, it's also called Krita chakra. Krita chakra. Okay? They both will be used. Traditionally, Krita chakra is used more. Udaya chakra is more traditional. We use it. Scriptures will use Krita. Traditionally, we like to say Udaya. So that you got. Okay? The others will be easy. A Prakriti is normal. Vikriti is when we have these fixed signs involved, right? And then you have two types of ways to calculate length of dasha, or three. What's the first one? What is the Purusha rule?
Start from
The
in
Rashi and go to the
direction.
Lord.
Exactly. Go from sign to Lord. Prakriti is opposite, right? What's that?
Lord to
Lord to
Lord back to sign. Good. What's more? Let's say the first dasha is that of Cancer. What will be the second dasha normally?
Backwards, Gemini.
Gemini, do you agree? Why not Leo?
Mahadasha.
Let's assume Mahadasha.
Should be
It also be
reversed.
Antardasha.
Reverse is even.
It's an even sign, you go in reverse.
Reverse.
How about Scorpio? Scorpio's first dasha.
Scorpio.
If you apply the
So what will be second dasha?
Vikriti,
Sagittarius.
then it will have.
What, sorry?
No. If you apply the rule of Vikriti.
Ah, good. You should give me one answer. I'll give you, tell me Vikriti chakra. Second dasha after Scorpio is?
Sorry? Seems combination.
What?
Sagittarius.
Correct. Prakriti chakra, Diego? Scorpio dasha, Prakriti chakra? Okay. Mutlu, Prakriti chakra, Scorpio? What will be second dasha?
Taurus.
Taurus, but that's opposite. Scorpio is first dasha. So now you have to choose go forward or backwards.
Libra.
Libra, correct. If it's Prakriti chakra, it's Libra. If it's Vikriti chakra, it's Sagittarius. Good. Let us see. How about Virgo? I have Saturn in Virgo. Let's say Saturn is my first dasha. Okay? First dasha. Virgo is my first dasha. Which chakra will I use and what will be the second dasha?
Forward.
Udaya.
I think
Udaya, it should go as a even sign, it should go reverse, but because of Shani it will go forward.
Correct. What will be the second dasha?
Forward.
Tua.
Libra. Good.
No matter what, you always go.
Huh?
No matter what, you always go zodiacally with Shani.
Mm.
Yes. Good.
Whichever chakra you use.
I think you've got it. I think you've got it. You don't think you've got it, Anya? You don't think you got it?
No. I mean, I got the rules, but if you would ask me now to calculate dasha, I would just start crying, you know.
That's because
Not.
that's because when I teach you the dasha, I'll tell you which rules to use.
Mm.
Now you have all the variables. You can't just use this blindly. You cannot. You need to have a dasha to use it on. But these rules are for all dashas. So it depends on number one, where we start from. Number two, are we going to use Purusha or Prakriti rule for the years? Number three, are we going to use Paka Antara, Rasi Antara for the Antardasha starting point? Are we going to use a set gati of every sign one by one for Mahadashas? Or are we going to jump? Like I showed you yesterday. We were jumping. Narayan Dasha. Antardashas, the order is always the same. There's no doubt there. Good. We're done with this slide for today.